Hi, welcome to my reading books section. This one is really a great find. I think humor is one of the greatest ways of making life more tolerable. It really can help you also see life in another perspective, and this one is an interesting one. It's called Hope, a Tragedy by Shalom Auslander. It's funny, Auslander in German means a foreigner. So this makes sense to read this after The Fixer. The Fixer is a very serious book. This is a very funny book. Actually, it is about a man who decides, a Jewish guy, who decides to move to a place that will never remind him of his identity, to just blend in America. This is interesting considering what's going on in America these days. And there's a quote, "We were liberated from death, from the fear of death, but the fear of life started." Rosenhaft. Yesterday, my story. So he has this mother. He was raised by a single mother. There's another quote. I love quotes. "Hide in the sky, hide in the sky. Who wants to come with me and hide in the sky?" So his mother is telling him all these stories about the Holocaust. This is showing him pictures, and actually goes on a school trip to the Holocaust Museum, and he turns out, and he says, "Oh, that's my mother. That's my mother there on there's an iconic picture of Holocaust, during the Holocaust, of young women being taken by trains." And then his teacher says, "No, that's not your mother. Your mother wasn't born then." And then he turns out that his mother is just making up this reality where she's a Holocaust survivor, and it's just okay. It starts. Let me start by reading a few passages I marked. "It's funny. It isn't the fire that kills you; it's the smoke." So he's moved into this house. His name is Solomon Kugel. And he hears this scratching. Somebody's in the attic. And then he discovers it is an elderly woman. And turns out the elderly woman is Anne Frank. So Anne Frank is living in his attic. And then there's the scene. It says, "You expect certain things when you move to the country. You just do. You expect these things because you've seen the films, you've watched TV episodes. You expect dishonest carpenters and creepy locals. You expect deer eating your petunias and raccoons toppling your garbage. You expect poison ivy and power outrages and colorful neighbors and mice. You don't expect arson. And you sure as hell don't expect Anne Frank." So then he's like thinking she's crazy because his mother also made up that she's a Holocaust survivor. So he's thinking maybe this woman is crazy. So he's thinking, what do you do if you don't know if Anne Frank is living in your attic? So he's deciding to make this phone call, which I think is one of the funniest scenes in this book. So he's going, another funny scene is he's looking for, she wants matzahs, and he has to go find matzahs in a small little American town. So it actually says a lot about America, actually, this book, more than about anything else. Because they're talking about how she had a bestseller and like she sold 22 million, and his wife said 32 million copies. And now she's decided to continue to write, and it's hard to beat the Diary of Anne Frank. So she's still a writer. And that she actually went to the editor of her book And he said, stay dead, because that would be better for selling the books. Okay, so I hope this is not, by the way, in any way dishonoring the memory of Anne Frank. I think it's actually good to speak about things and to speak about possibilities. What would have happened if Anne Frank had survived? So what he does is he decides to call the Simon Wiesenthal Center. So, good afternoon, said the cheerful woman on the other end of the line. Simon Wiesenthal Center, how may I help you? Was it the afternoon already? Should the Simon Wiesenthal Center receptionist be so chipper? Yes, said Kugel softly. Hello, I was wondering if you could... I'm sorry, sir. You're going to have to speak up. I can hardly hear you. Hello, yes, said Kugel more loudly. I'm trying to find out if someone died in the Holocaust. I wonder if you could help me. Of course, said the woman, her tone becoming instantly more somber. We have a vast searchable database, she continued, of all the millions of victims of Nazi brutality. Of course, many died outside the camps or en route to them, so you understand that not every person that was murdered will be listed. I understand, said Kugel. Many died in the street. Sure, he said. Like dogs. Of course, in front of their wives, I know, and children. Terrible. Last name, she asked. Frank. First name? Kugel swallowed. Anne, he said. Click. God damn it, thought Kugel. So, now what? Should he phone the Museum of Tolerance? Should he contact the Anne Frank house? He couldn't imagine those inquiries would prove any more fruitful. What if the Wiesenthal woman phoned the ADL? That's the Anti-Defamation League. He wondered. What if she told them a Holocaust denier had phoned? What if she had traced the call? Kugel imagined the ADL banging on the front door, dragging him from the house, kicking, screaming. He could see the forlorn look on Mother's face, the disappointment. She's in the attic, I swear, he would call out as they threw him in the back of the ADL van and locked the door. She's in the attic. Tell everyone, why don't you? Mother would say. The tapping began again. God damn it, thought Kugel. So this is the list that Anne Frank gives him. Matzah, 12 boxes. Herring, 1 jar. Borscht, gefilte fish. Printing paper, 3 packages, no holes. Mini fridge. Mini fridge, thought Kugel as he pushed the cart along the automatic door. Mother Earth's Bounty Natural Food Market. Where the hell was he supposed to find gefilte fish in Stockton? Who the fuck needs a dozen boxes of matzahs? He hated even saying that word, matzahs. The Kugels had never particularly been observant, but when Kugel was young, the one holiday Mother celebrated every year was Passover. It was a celebration, she said, of freedom. Kugel hadn't seen it quite that way. It seemed more like a celebration of suffering, of slavery, a sacrament of hardship and abuse. Kugel, Mother, and Hannah sat around the Seder table for hours on end as Mother read them stories of how their ancestors died, how babies were murdered, how rabbis were burnt alive. It made young Kugel angry. Hadn't he and Mother and Hannah suffered too? Okay, so they hadn't been wrapped in Torahs and burned by the Romans, but it hadn't exactly been a picnic either. Perhaps retelling the suffering of others made Mother feel better about her own, but to Kugel it just set up a pointless competition, a misery Olympics he didn't want to compete in, the losers of which lost all claim to their legitimate pain, the winner of which won nothing but pity. Mother, it seemed to young Kugel, was forever going for the gold. So it's true, we do like to suffer, don't we, as Jews? So he had a problem. He has food problem too, is typical like Jew. Matzah, the most hated food of his youth. This was the one, as an adult, he would find he was allergic to, the one his body was actually incapable of processing, the one the lining of his gut identified as poison. His stomach was anti-Semitic, his bowels had assimilated, his rectum was self-hating, and Frank would be pleased. Mother would be disappointed. It seemed of late that everything had become poisonous. Wheat gave him diarrhea, sugar made him sweat, profusely. Caffeine made him even more diarrhea than wheat did, as well as intense anxiety, so the anguish doubled over the toilet bowl. Diarrhea meant something was going terribly wrong with him. Inside, he was decomposing from the inside out and was all likelihood only moments away from death. So he buys this. So this is an interesting thing, a passage. It might seem provocative to some people. All right, so he's talking about this, everything is no corn syrup, no MCG, carb-free, dye-free, wheatless, flourless, sugarless. With each ingredient, there wasn't including the price increases. It's true, a box of nothing, free of poison, toxins, pesticides, a box that needs no warning, no list of possible side effects and adverse reaction, a box that didn't harm unborn children or require checking with your physician before opening. A box of fucking air would require a second mortgage. Staying alive was costing them a fortune. What kind of a monster brings a child into this world? Jesus said, ouch. Hitler was an optimist. This is like an idea he had, that Hitler was an optimist because he actually thought there was like a final solution. And you do this and that and everything will be fine, which is a really bad comment, perhaps. Oh, I'm being attacked by a kitten. So there are really good scenes here. And the whole idea that Anne Frank is alive and living in his... Sorry, but this is too much. He's just devouring me, this kid. The whole idea that Anne Frank is living in his attic and writing her second novel while he's looking for matzahs in a small little town in America. And he's thinking about this whole problem of hiding an attic. And he's thinking, who could hide him in the attic? Because he doesn't know that many people. And his mother has Alan Dershowitz as her hero, a huge picture of him hanging above the bed. So, stop biting me. So he was like, he's looking for somebody who he can hide, who can save him in case there will be another genocide. And he's thinking, well, he'll have to compete with the Mexicans and the immigrants and all the other people that will have to hide as well, the homosexuals. They will all take up also, you'll have to compete with everybody for the attic space. So I will read, this is our Samuel Beckett, stop it. And the idea of hiding with the cat was also, he says a lot of things that I don't know about other people, but I had also thought about, like, I would never, how could people survive the Holocaust? Like, I could never survive it. And he also said that, like, he would not even, he's like gluten intolerant, and all they had is bread, so he would just not even make it at the beginning. And he just had this scene in his mind where his wife, who has problems with dyes, food coloring, would go and ask, do you have clear soup? And it's just that it seems this humor actually points to the fact that these people went through things that you can't even begin to imagine. Modern people living in 2019 with all our, oh, this is gluten-free and sugar-free and this is free. How could people actually survive with such horrible diet and such terrible conditions? And yeah, so humor is a really good method, I think, of making us aware. It works so much better than telling us off. Stop it. But with cats, you really have to be tough. Stop it. They told me to say stop because otherwise it grows up to be a mean cat. But it looks like, I don't know, it's already too late. Anyway, to be continued after he lets go. Stop. This is a horrible scene, isn't it? I just wanted to tell you how much I suffer. And you wonder sometimes why do people actually enjoy suffering? Stop it! This is really more painful than it even looks.